please welcome on stage Sam Altman and Mathias Döpfner.
Good evening. Welcome everybody here, and Sam, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do you enjoy it so far?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Sam, we listened to the Antonio Vivaldi Four Seasons. He composed it 300 years ago, roughly. Do you think he would have done an even better job with the help of artificial intelligence?
It's hard to imagine it being much better, but I hope so. I mean, I hope this will be a tool for creatives as much as it's a tool for people being more efficient in business and whatever, and people will make amazing new music in future years.
Well, I think it's an interesting debate in the art scene. People are discussing, would great artists take advantage of that? Would a Picasso even be more creative, be even better? And I truly think yes, probably, because a genius always takes the best tools.
All of human history suggests yes.
I mean, I also discovered a couple of years ago, we had these discussions what AI cannot do. So it doesn't have a sense of humor. It is not kind of emotional, and it's not creative. And we learned that it's all wrong, because actually AI is excelling particularly on these three levels. I mean, ChatGPT can be pretty funny. It is way more, has a lot more empathy as most of human beings, at least it can fake it better. I mean, compare a call center with real humans and with AI, I tell you, after the third question, they will answer more politely. And with regard to creativity, it also is, in any case, inspiring. But would you say that we have reached a level or will reach a level where artificial intelligence is providing real creativity?
First of all, I don't think ChatGPT is that funny. But I remember these moments along the way where the first time that something felt very outside of my expectations for what AI could do happened. And I kind of, even though I know they'll keep coming, it's a little surprising each time. And I remember the first time that I cracked a smile at a joke out of a language model. I think it was like a sort of GPT 3.5 time. Once in a while, you get lucky with a slightly funny thing. And that, for me, was extremely striking at the time, because for whatever reason, I had thought of humor as this very different thing than what language models should be doing. That seemed hard and complex. So there are many examples since along the way. And then now, we can argue about creativity in different ways, but one thing that we have for a long time said would be an unequivocal test of that was the first time that AI could come up with new scientific knowledge, new scientific discovery that humans had not yet done. It's hard to argue that's not creating something, or at least to me it feels like it is. And with GPT-5 for the first time, there's still very small, still pretty trivial things, but scientists are reporting that GPT-5 is coming up with novel ideas, worthwhile novel ideas. I've seen this in math and physics. And that, for me, has been, of all of these moments where AI did something that it didn't think it could do, this has been the most wow, we're really in a different era now.
We Europeans tend to have difficulties to focus on the opportunities. Nevertheless, you have somehow a passion for Europe. You care about Europe. You have almost a European patriotism. Why is that?
Many reasons, but I'll stick on this theme of scientific discovery. I think there's something magical about European culture that has led to centuries of scientific discovery that have shaped the world. And you see it in many other ways. So I don't mean to only talk about the scientific progress. But going all the way back to the Enlightenment, I don't think that could have happened anywhere else in the world. And the continued centuries of progress and contribution since then, I have tremendous respect, admiration, and gratitude for. And I also think that there is, I love America. I'm thrilled to be American. But there is something about European culture that we don't have, about how people live their lives, how society gets organized. I don't think this is the only great thing about Europe either, but like the world needs a strong Europe. Like there is a sense of history and humanity here that I think is critical. And you know, I hope for a strong Europe. I hope that they will have a strong transatlantic partnership. I think it's something we really want to invest in.
No, I agree. Most likely we are going to solve the real big challenges together in a transatlantic alliance way better than alone. You've just announced some initiatives here with regard to Stargate Europe and also the SAP partnership. Why do we need sovereignty? Why do we need a German sovereign ChatGPT?
So we don't know where this technology is going to go, but we do know that countries are going to depend on it more and more, and countries need to be able to depend on it, you know, despite what may happen in short-term shifting politics and, you know, alliances and whatever else. And I think many countries will realize that for public sector use, but also for their private sector companies, this is going to be a cornerstone of geopolitics, economic growth, innovation, much more. And people need to marry access to frontier models with tech sovereignty, and that seems important. This is a first of its kind partnership for us. We're very, very excited to get to do it with Germany. But I hope this is, you know, a model that we'll decide to replicate around the world.
Since you spoke about European culture, I cannot resist to ask you, how was dinner with King Charles?
You know, I'm a tech nerd. Like, I don't normally do stuff like this. He is not. But, you know, I thought I was going to make it my entire life without ever having to wear white tie. I really did. And this is not the kind of normal thing. I don't know how to like use silverware the right way or whatever, like none of that kind of stuff. So I felt like an alien and totally out of place, but it was a very cool experience. I was skeptical. I was like, oh, I got to go do this thing. But it was a wonderful evening. The guests were great. It was beautifully done. It felt very special.
Did one alien speak to the other alien, or?
I did end up getting along with everybody.
Okay, but on a more serious note, Europe, America, I think the big difference is that America has a different risk appetite, and Europe is rather avoiding risks. If you fail, then sometimes you don't get a second chance. If you fail in America, people are saying, nice try, try it again, great. They choose you for the next startup because you have made some experiences that other people didn't. Do you see any possibility that Europe could develop more risk appetite and with that generate more innovation?
Yeah, as I mentioned, there's many things I like about Europe. This is one that I really don't. Before OpenAI, I ran Y Combinator. We invest in startups. I guess now they invest in startups. And one of my goals at the time was really to help increase our investment in European startups and foster startups in Europe, because I love startups. I think startups should be everywhere. Europe was one of the hardest places in the world for us. And there were a lot of reasons for that, but one of the biggest reasons, the reason came the most often, is this idea that if you kind of fail once at a startup, which most people who do startups do, your career is like tainted forever. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's right to say that failure is celebrated in Silicon Valley, which some people say, but failure is still a very unpleasant experience. But it is tolerated. You can fail at something and people look past it, and you can do another startup and another, and eventually things work. My first startup didn't work out that well, and I was able to, have a career as an investor and then go on and do this other startup, which is now working out much better. And I think that is really important to a culture of innovation, and it's really important to a dynamic economy. So I think it would be, for sure it can change, because I've watched it change in many other places around the world. But I think that's a really wonderful change.
I mean, one of the main purposes of this award is to encourage entrepreneurship. So also to encourage a risk-take culture. You are famous for taking the biggest risks. If there is a zero, put another zero or a couple of zeros behind it. If there is a risk, double up on it. Why did you develop that risk appetite? Is it education, your parents, or where does it come from?
I actually don't think of risk-taking versus non-risk-taking as the right framing. The way that I maybe would describe this is I try to be expected, I try to maximize expected value. And so if there's something that is, like I don't want to take stupid risk. I don't want to take risk for an adrenaline rush. I don't want to, take risk because like, I think most people, I don't want to take risk to gamble. But I think there are a lot of cases, and I think startups are a great example of this, where there's a huge distribution of potential outcomes. Failure is a likely case in many. The ones where it works, this is also often the case in science, you create huge value. And so the expected value of doing something is hugely positive, even if you fail in most cases. And those are the kind of risks that I like to take. That is where I think there's like a lot of value gets created. That's where I think the really, the major economic growth and innovation comes from. And so what I would try, to get that, you have to allow people to fail at stuff, and it has to not ruin someone's career. But that's kind of, rather than like, is risk good or bad, I would look at it from a like, let's maximize expected value, which involves taking risk when the rewards are worth it.
I remember the day when ChatGPT was launched and I used it for the first time. It was truly an epiphany for me. I mean, after the first user experience with a website many, many years ago, and then the first use case of an iPhone, that was my third epiphany, and I thought that's going to change everything. Not only our own history, but literally everything. And we heard about the incredible success that it had and the fastest rollout of an app ever. Did you personally expect something like that, or were you surprised by it?
It was one of the few times where I really pushed the company that we were going to do something that there was not really good internal belief in doing. So I believed it was going to succeed, but I did not believe it was going to succeed this much. We, as like a funny accident of history, we had launched GPT-3 in our API, and it was going okay, but it wasn't going that well. There was really only one category of businesses that were really thriving. And the other thing that was happening was we had this thing called the playground where you could test a query to the API. And people got obsessed using it as a chatbot. They were just like, I can talk to the model. And it barely worked for this. But one of the things I had learned at Y Combinator is if you see people pulling behavior out of a product when it's hard to do, and loving it anyway, that's like a really good sign. So we knew we wanted to build a chat product. And then while that had been going on, we had developed GPT 3.5, which we had launched, and GPT 4, which we had internally for about 8 months before we launched it. And so we all no longer were impressed with 3.5. We were used to 4. And a thing happened then that has happened many times since, where our own internal understanding of where AI was and what the public had seen got so disconnected that we forgot how much of an update it had been for us the first time we got to talk to one of these models. And so people were like, oh, it's not going to be good enough. Until we put out GPT-4, it's not going to be a big deal. And then even launching with GPT 3.5 was going to be a big deal. But did we think it was going to like go on this rocket ship trajectory? I think there would be no way we could have reasonably predicted that. That would have been reckless.
When we discuss the opportunities of artificial intelligence, we very often focus on efficiency. It's going to make everything faster, more efficient. But I think we should discuss more about quality to improve things. And I think the most obvious case, the most obvious area where artificial intelligence is going to improve our lives is health. Do you see, first of all, do you agree? And do you see other areas where we will see comparable progress that really improves our quality of life?
I totally agree. But first of all, one thing that the minister said that I really has been a driving force of ours for a long time is we want to distribute this power, capability, technology as widely as possible and enable as many people as we can, because we won't we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the ideas, we don't know, but we do believe that if we can, instead of concentrating this within a few companies, put this into every company and every person with a good idea, that people will find incredible ways to transform beyond what we can think. I'm sure healthcare will be great, I'll talk about it in a second, but the thing that I am most certain of is the collective creativity and genius of the whole world using this technology for whatever they think, and then letting the forces of the market and society do more of what's useful to people, we will see incredible benefits from. And some of that will be in creativity, as we talked about. I think a lot will be in health. One of the things we really pushed on with GPT-5 was to make it good at answering health questions. We had seen over the last couple of versions people using more and more, using ChatGPT more and more for help managing their healthcare journey. And it's gotten quite good. So we wanted to push that hard with GPT-5 and work with physicians. Doctors use it to provide better healthcare, but patients and people use it a lot for questions. So I have no doubt that's going to go much, much further. I also think we're starting to see now for the first time with the latest models, not just better delivery of healthcare services, but actual new innovation, new drug discovery, better understanding of disease. We're now very far from my area of expertise, but a lot of scientists are saying that we will cure significant diseases in the next few years, and a decade or 2 decades out, maybe have cured, or at least been effectively able to treat a significant percentage of all diseases.
As a kind of advanced hypochondriac, I very much care about that progress, and I can only encourage you to go fast.
Do you type in your symptoms all the time?
All the time,
right.
It's really, but let's switch topics, that's good. Sam, OpenAI has just raised a lot of money based on a $300 billion round. The next is already going to close very soon at a $500 billion round. NVIDIA has decided to cooperate and invest $100 billion. The numbers are just mind-blowing. It's still an early stage of the development of the company, and this kind of rocket success, this transformative role in society. Do you have sometimes moments of an imposter syndrome that you think that is just getting out of control? It's just too successful, or you don't?
Yeah. Look, first of all, I think one thing that's different, very different about AI than the internet era, is the infrastructure costs are just so expensive. So to build out the infrastructure, the chips, the energy, the data centers, the networking gear that it takes to train these models, and even more so to serve them to the people that want to use them, it's just hugely expensive and complicated. Yesterday I was at one of our gigawatt class data centers. There's 7,000 construction people running around. You're watching these multi-million-dollar racks come in one after the other, and all this power generation. And you look at this gigantic thing. It's these are bigger than any other kind of physical project I've ever seen. And you think this whole thing only serves a small fraction of ChatGPT users. So just the amount of money and physical stuff that it takes to deliver this in complex supply chain is massive. And that means that the companies of this era have to raise or spend far more capital than the previous era. And then in terms of imposter syndrome, I grew up very much as a computer nerd in a small town, or a small suburb of a small town in the middle of America. And I was a sci-fi nerd, so I dreamed about AI a lot. But I certainly never thought I would really be doing it. But I don't have time to think about that much. It's just caught up in the crisis of the moment.
That's probably helpful. You've been born into a Jewish family that came from Russia and Poland. Yeah. You've been raised in St. Louis, kind of entrepreneurial tradition in the family. I would be interested which values were important in your family and which values are important for you?
A really big one from my dad was you just always help people, kind of even if you don't have time, even if you're busy with other stuff, you really put helping people first. He lived that way in his personal life and in his work life, and he would he would push that onto us. Not really, he would lead that lead by example on that a lot. And I think for me and all of my siblings, that was like one important value from him. And then a thing from my mom, there are many from my mom, but one was she was like very good at pushing people around her, including her kids, that you can do more, you can be better, you can be more ambitious, you can really try to, like, I think she's great at getting people to do their best, and that is, I think, in running a company and also in what we hope for in the products that we build. That's value that's important. Other values from a broader community. It's a little bit weird to say as someone running an AI company, but I think I just grew up with like a very human-centric framing of the world, and thus a belief that AI has really deeply got to serve humanity. It's not, we got to build the tool and not the creature here.
Will AI bring back and make more important kind of very human virtues, perhaps emotional intelligence, imperfection, intuition, things like that? Will we appreciate that more?
One thing I say all the time is no one knows what happens next. I can make a prediction with equally low likelihood of it being right as somebody else, but like society is difficult to predict. My instinct, though, is, and one reason I'm actually quite optimistic about how the future is going to feel to us, is people are obsessed with other people, and they don't care that much about technology. So GPT-5 at this point, unbelievably smart from an IQ perspective. And as you mentioned, pretty good from an EQ perspective, surprisingly good also. We've seen over the last few months, GPT-5 is beating humans at the most difficult intellectual competitions we have in area after area after area. Just, I think it was last week, one of the hardest programming competitions in the world. No human had ever gotten every problem right. Our model did it. This is unimaginable a couple of years ago. Seen it in math, all kinds of science, all this other stuff. And no one cares. And I think that's great. I really do. People are still going to go compete next year. They really care about how they do relative to those other people. They don't care at all that the AI is going to absolutely steamroll them in terms of the score. The performance at the start here was so beautiful. It really was moving and wonderful. If that had been done by robots, even if the music sounded exactly the same, we wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have had any of the emotional resonance.
Yeah.
And I could go through many other examples, but we are so, I believe you never fight evolutionary biology, and we are so wired to care about other people and not to care about machines that, we'll be happy that these machines are doing stuff for us and making the world richer and discovering new science and curing disease and whatever, but they will not be the center of the story. That's my guess.
Great. Last question. I mean, you symbolized for me unstoppable, restless optimism. You always see the positive side of it. Perhaps you can help me with a topic where I struggle to be optimistic, and that's the state of democracy and the free world order. War in Ukraine, war in Israel, threats from an autocratic superpower, China, Islamists, terrorists undermining Western values, centrist democracy stumbling. So is that really the beginning of the end of the open society that we love to live in? Or could that be the healthy warning call in order to strengthen democracies and institutions and, in the end, even politics of democracies?
I am super worried about this. I don't feel optimistic about this. Everyone always wants to talk to me about the threats of AI, so that's what I got to talk about. And I do have some concerns there. I think we have some serious concerns, but I think we've got some ideas about how to mitigate those. I have no idea about how to mitigate this sort of geopolitical situation of the world. I worry that democracy and the associated values like freedom of expression that make it work are under increasing attack globally. It's been surprising to me that we've had as much peace in the world as we have had over the last few decades, given everything that's happened. It's obviously far from a perfect story, but I could have imagined it had going much worse at many times. But this seems like a scary moment indeed. And we're even further from my expertise here. I have no idea what it takes to turn this around.
Perhaps we should take, in that context, Ben Gurion as our role model, who famously said, in order to be a realist in Israel, you have to believe in miracles. So perhaps you have to believe in miracles. Sam, is it actually true that your kind of favorite book is The Beginning of Infinity of David Deutsch?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one favorite book, I would pick that.
Why is that so fascinating? Can you explain that?
Even if you don't read the whole thing, the first like 40, 50 pages are, I think, the most wonderfully optimistic take on why, even in a world with AI, we're never going to run out of things to do and ways to be useful and problems to solve and things to explore. But I also think it explains so beautifully how we got here and why the relatively simple process that we followed throughout human history got us to this incredible place.
Okay, that's good, because David Deutsch, I think, is going to be our last virtual guest, at least tonight. David Deutsch is a physicist and scientist from Oxford University. And I think also you have disagreements with him about the possibility that artificial intelligence is transforming into super intelligence with consciousness, perhaps even. He thinks it cannot be the case. You think it should be the case. Here he is, David Deutsch. Welcome. And perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on that disagreement, but also why you admire Sam Altman. Welcome.
I don't care about that. I just want to hear the disagreement.
Okay, I can tell you.
Good.
Right. Well, on my computer, I keep a list of progress that has been achieved where I had previously been sure that it wasn't yet possible. One of the items, I'm embarrassed to admit, was the World Wide Web. Another was that I thought that no computer program would be able to sustain open-ended conversation on general subjects in natural language unless that program was an AGI, an artificial general intelligence. So it would have, I prefer to call, explanatory creativity. ChatGPT proved me wrong. It's not an AGI, and it can converse. That ability was a side effect of another, namely knowledge. The ELIZA chatbot in the 1960s used little more than the words and phrases you told it. ChatGPT can chat about anything, drawing on a vast body of knowledge, which was phenomenally useful combination. For some people, too useful. They think they're speaking to a person, an AGI, just as the first users of ELIZA treated it as if it were a person. Which brings me to a widespread myth of the Turing test. In reality, Alan Turing never proposed a test or benchmark for AGI. His imitation game wasn't a test of anything, but a thought experiment to torpedo the intuition that machines can't think. Indeed, there can be no benchmark, because to be general, an AGI must be capable of choosing to remain silent. This is already a proof that AGI cannot be made via existing approaches, for those can and must be judged by benchmarks. Conversely, if something outputs a new explanation, you can't test for whether it created that or a human did, even you yourself when you administered the test. In Edison's phrase, there's the inspiration part, which only humans and AGIs can do, and the perspiration part, from which AIs can liberate us. So, if there's no test, how do we know that humans are general intelligences? By telling their story. Human thought doesn't consist of mechanically converting motivations into actions, prompts into output. It's mainly about choosing motivations. Just as science is not extracting theories from data, it's seeing a problem, guessing explanations, criticizing and testing them. So how can you tell whether something is doing that? You can't always. Sometimes it really is a bot you're chatting to. But when you have no explanation saying that you yourself are a bot, or that humans in general are, it's rational to assume that they aren't. Some people have fun questioning whether Einstein really created the theory of relativity or only assembled it mechanically from a smorgasbord of existing ideas. We know he created it because we know his story, what problems he was addressing and why. Just as we know that Sam Altman, without having to write any code, brought ChatGPT into existence as a product and a phenomenon by having the intuition and the gumption to know that this was the right thing for humanity to try next. Nothing can program a computer to have such intuitions. Yet.
Can I ask one question?
Be my guest.
You mentioned Einstein and general relativity, and I agree. I think that's like one of the most beautiful things humanity's ever figured out. Maybe I would even say number one. And Einstein had a story. We knew what he was working on. If in a few years GPT-8 figured out quantum gravity and could tell you its story of how it did it and the problems it was thinking about and why it decided to work on that, but it still just looked like a language model output, but it was it really did solve it. Would you call, then would you, I appreciate that you keep a list of things you were wrong about. I do too. But would that be enough to convince you?
I think it would, yes.
All right.
I'll take you up. Is crucial here.
David Deutsch.
I agree to that as the test.
David, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your uplifting words, and have a great evening. David Deutsch, pioneer of quantum computing, one of the most brilliant thinkers of our times. Thank you for joining. Sam, we are almost done, but you may ask yourself, where is the award? So, yeah, traditionally we don't have one. We think it's so unpractical, it's going to be under dust and unnecessary. So there is no award.
Great.
But there is one last little surprise Nico Rosberg has prepared for you. Where is he? Here. Nico? Where is it? So
I'll go check.
in any case, I mean, you are a fan of fast cars, race cars, Formula One.
Wow.
I hope that you have good protection if you're doing that trip with Nico.
Cool. So
this, you have to explain what it is.
It's my great pleasure to present you with a helmet that is like the one where I won the world championship with at the time, which is kind of like, for us, one of the most special things we can hand over. So
thank you very, very much.
You kind of appreciate that a little bit.
Thank you. That's much better than a little loose
It's
light.
better, isn't it? Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We now proceed to the Journalist Club, having something to eat and some drinks. Wonderful to have you. Enjoy the evening.